Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. In his novel 1984, George Orwell said, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." Climate alarmists have added a new phrase, cold is hot. USA Today has an article out predicting record cold for the East and blaming it on global warming. They say climate change is making winters colder despite rising temperatures and hotter summers. In some ways this is progress. They're finally acknowledging the fact that winters are getting colder. But their claim that summers are getting hotter is simply not true. These graphs and maps are from the National Climate Assessment, and they all show that summers have gotten much cooler in the United States. The length of U.S. warm spells has decreased since the 1930s. Heat wave magnitude has decreased sharply, and the warmest temperature has also decreased sharply. Summers have gotten much cooler in the United States. Before data tampering by NOAA, the average maximum summer temperature in the United States has declined quite a bit over the past 100 years. The frequency of 90-degree days has also declined sharply, with recent years being among the coolest on record. And the same story for 95-degree days and 100-degree days. So USA Today admits that winters are getting colder in the United States, and hopefully in time they will also recognize the fact that summers are getting cooler. Then the USA Today video goes off and explains why cold weather is caused by heat and how scientists predicted it all along. This claim is also patently false. The 1995 IPCC report predicted the demise of skiing. December 13, 1995, global warming threatens skiing, scientists say. There's a new reason to decry global warming. It might mean less snow to ski on. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a group of scientists from 120 countries, said Tuesday that global warming might be reducing the world's snowfall and jeopardizing the skiing industry. And of course, there's no way that scientists from 120 countries could possibly have gotten that wrong. These are scientists we're talking about. Then in their 2001 report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said, milder winter temperatures will decrease heavy snowstorms. And in their 2007 report, they also predicted sharp declines in snow cover and said, the actual reductions are greatest in spring and late autumn, early winter, indicating a shortened snow cover season. This graph is from Rutgers University and shows the October Northern Hemisphere snow cover anomaly. Every year but one since that 2007 IPCC report has been above normal. The scientists got it exactly backwards. Also from Rutgers University, autumn snow cover has been increasing in the Northern Hemisphere for the past 50 years. The IPCC scientists had absolutely no clue what they were talking about. We've been having incredible ski seasons here in Colorado, with this year again breaking the record for earliest opening at many ski areas. This is the Rutgers University graph for winter snow cover. As you can see, that also has been increasing for 50 years, and the record years have been occurring recently. This graph from Rutgers University shows the average snow cover for the entire year. Recent years have generally been well above normal, and snow cover has been increasing since 1988, when carbon dioxide levels reached 350 parts per million. Again, the IPCC scientists had absolutely no clue what they were talking about. Where I live in Boulder, Colorado is the epicenter of climate research. We have the National Center for Atmospheric Research, we have NOAA, and we have the National Snow and Ice Data Center, not to mention lots of climate research going on at the University of Colorado. We had lots of record cold and snow in October. Halloween temperatures have been declining in Colorado for more than a century, and this year was by far the coldest on record. We also had a record late start to summer. I took these pictures west of Boulder on the first day of summer. There was a massive snowstorm. It would be good if climate scientists looked out the window once in a while rather than just staring at their climate models. I'm quite certain that Toto could help them out if they would simply listen to him. After all, Toto is a very smart dog. In fact, the campground at Brainerd Lake was closed on the first day of summer for the winter season. That doesn't seem to agree with USA Today's assertion that summers are getting hotter. In the year 2000, David Viner of the University of East Anglia in England announced that children just aren't going to know what snow is. In 2002, experts announced that the U.S. was going to warm up by 5 to 9 degrees, and the only place we'd be able to hold the Winter Olympics was way up in northern Alaska. In 2006, the New York Times announced the endless summer. In 2008, University of Colorado professor Mark Williams announced the demise of skiing in Colorado and Utah. He knew this because his climate models told him so. In 2014, the New York Times announced the end of snow. On February 9th of last year, climate alarmists were very upset that NBC Sports wouldn't acknowledge the fact that Winter Olympics were threatened by global warming. This came exactly one day after it was announced that the 2018 Winter Olympics opening ceremony could be the coldest ever. There's no longer any need for Monty Python's Flying Circus. We have climate scientists and the press to provide all the comedy for us. Also in 2018, the New York Times announced the demise of the Winter Olympics. Well, there was lots of snow at last year's Winter Olympics, but that wasn't always the case. In the 1932 Winter Olympics, they almost had to cancel it because of a lack of snow. Los Angeles Times, January 16, 1932. Rain removes snow in Lake Placid area. January 15. Rain today wiped away the last vestiges of snow. New York, January 15. With a high temperature of 66 degrees today, New York enjoyed the third successive day of record January warm weather. Now let's move over to the West Coast. In 2016, the New York Times and Governor Jerry Brown of California announced the permanent drought. And Wired magazine announced the same thing. These announcements were made a few months before California's wettest winter on record. It was so wet that winter that the Oroville Dam in California nearly collapsed. California's three snowiest winters all occurred in the past decade, in 2011, 2017, and this past winter. But in 2001, experts were predicting the demise of snow in California. One of the world's leading climate fraudsters, Katharine Hayhoe, predicted a 70 to 90% reduction in California's snow cover due to our addiction to fossil fuels. Let's look at how Katharine Hayhoe's forecast is working out so far. On March 22nd of this year, it was reported that residents of Mammoth, California had to tunnel out of their houses because the snow was so deep. The ski area at Squaw Valley, California was open until at least July 7th. But reality never has any impact on climate scientists and the press. Last year they announced America's shrinking ski season. New analysis by the Climate Impact Lab brings more bad news for American skiers already experiencing disappointing conditions at their favorite resorts. Here's some ski photographs from April 18th of this year. This was Taos, New Mexico. This was Stowe, Vermont. And this was Squaw Valley, California. And remember, these photographs were taken during the second half of April. That's pretty late for skiing. Now let's look at how climate scientists and the press rewrite the past. This was a 2006 article discussing the Squaw Valley Winter Olympics. They said, 46 years ago this month, the world's athletes frolicked in the snow at the 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley, California. And now let's look at the reality of the 1960 Winter Olympics. Here's a news article from February 1960. Change to snow saves California Olympic site. Rain turned to snow just in time to avert possible disaster at the Winter Olympic Games. 3 Northeast states offer snowy slopes to Olympic skiers. New England's 3 northern states today extended open invitations to operators of the Winter Olympics who fear ski slopes at Squaw Valley, California will be ruined by heavy rains. The Orwellian rewrite of the 1960 Winter Olympic Games by scientists and the press should not surprise us because we see this all the time. Things are a lot different now. California has been having incredible ski seasons recently. During the winter of 2016, 2017, and this past winter, Squaw Valley got more than 700 inches of snow both winters. The U.S. has been seeing a lot of cold, snowy weather in recent years. In January of this year, Illinois set their all-time record cold temperature. And as the USA Today article pointed out, the eastern half of the U.S. is headed for more record cold in November. People won't survive very long at temperatures that cold without a reliable source of heat and energy. Without the clean, reliable fossil fuels they had to heat their homes, Who knows how many people in the Midwest would have died in January of this year. I took this picture in Washington, D.C. on January 8th of last year. Last year was the coldest New Year's on record in the northeastern United States. And I spent March and April in Philadelphia, where they had their coldest and snowiest spring on record. I spent the winter and spring of 2014 and 2015 in Maryland. I took this picture on March 7th on Chesapeake Bay. Washington climate expert Andy Weiss told me it was probably the first time it was frozen in March since the 18th century. At least climate alarmists are starting to admit the fact that we're having very cold winters in the United States. But of course they're trying to blame these big dips in the jet stream on global warming. But if we go back 40 years, these exact same dips in the jet stream were blamed by experts on global cooling. This was the January 1977 dip in the jet stream, which was blamed on global cooling, and this is the current one, which is blamed on global warming. Apparently, global cooling and global warming do exactly the same things. Reality never gets in the way of climate science propaganda, however. A 2015 study by Francis and Stephen Varvis, evidence for a wavier jet stream in response to rapid Arctic warming. This is complete nonsense. In January of 1977, Arctic sea ice was near a century high, and was so cold in the Arctic that Arctic air came down to Florida and it snowed in Miami. Let's think about the absurdity of what these climate scientists are saying. They're saying that record cold Arctic air is coming from a warm, melting Arctic. How clueless would a person have to be to believe such nonsense? The scary thing is that they're using their Orwellian rewrite of history to induce panic. 11,000 scientist signatories from around the world clearly and unequivocally stated that planet Earth is facing a climate emergency and that there needs to be far fewer humans on the planet. This is the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded theater. There's no way to massively reduce Earth's population in a short period of time without famine, disease, or genocide. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater and then expect the audience to exit in a slow, orderly fashion. That's not the way the world works. With their Orwellian rewrites of history and their junk science, these scientists are threatening huge numbers of people. There's no faster way to reduce Earth's population than to make energy unavailable or too expensive for most people to afford. Yet this is exactly what alarmist politicians say they want to do.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal-powered plants, natural gas, you name whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
These are dangerous times we live in, and the junk science from climate alarmists is right at the center of it. And many politicians in the press are aiding and abetting this effort to shut down the U.S. energy supply. We've seen this week in California with electricity unavailable. We've seen New York shut down fracking, and many other places are shutting down fracking too. This is the energy we depend on for our survival. And it's not just in the United States. Poor people in Germany are having to choose between eating and paying their energy bills as a direct result of green energy policies by the German government. There's still time to stop this insanity. We have a critical election coming up next year. Every sane person in the country needs to get involved and make sure that these climate lunatics are removed from office. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.